You know, recently I was joined by professor, author, philosopher, and activist, Dr. Cornel West, on location at the New Jersey Education Association Convention in Atlantic City. We discussed race relations in America, as well as the importance of civil discourse. We also, or he, compared President Obama and President Trump's leadership style. Let's take a look at this compelling conversation with Dr. Cornel West. Steve Adubato at the NJEA Convention. We are speaking to Dr. Cornel West, and we're gonna date ourselves because this interview will air after. We don't know what's gonna happen. There's an impeachment inquiry going on. There'll be a vote, and it seems to me. We'll date ourselves, but let me ask you this. What does, in fact, draw you? And we don't know where Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or anyone else is gonna be. What draws you to, dare I say, a Bernie Sanders?
Oh, I mean, the thing about Brother Bernie is that he has a longevity of integrity, that he's a thermostat, he's not a thermometer. You know, most politicians are thermometers. They want to check and see what the polls are before they really utter their convictions. Whereas a thermostat shapes the climate of opinion, it doesn't just reflect it. He's been a thermostat for 40 years. So that he says what he means what he says. Most politicians don't do that.
Is he let me ask you this, is he, quote, too far left to be elected President of the United States, in your view?
I think that if we follow the polls and see what people are actually yearning for, which is security from domination, a wonderful phrase by Brother Jeff Stout again, security from domination, which is not just a matter of policy. They want to live a life of decency and dignity, and they want to get some distance from the insecurity, economic, political, and so forth. Now, I've got disagreements with Brother Bernie. I mean, you know, we debate all the time.
Reasonable people disagree.
Absolutely. See, I'm a jazz man. Jazz man, I don't want unanimity. You know,
that bores you.
Yeah, and, you know, I come from a black people. Our anthem is lift every voice. It's not lift every echo. I don't want people just part of an echo
Different
chamber.
voices.
You got your voice. Your voice is like your fingerprint. My voice like my fingerprint.
Unique.
We're unique, singular. We raising, we bouncing off against one another. But for Bernie, it's a question of integrity. It's hard to find politicians these days.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up another name.
Genuine integrity.
I'm sorry for interrupting. We're listening to Dr. Cornel West. I'm going to ask you this because you have, along with some others, but you've been a leader, not just in the African-American community, but in this country, talking about President Obama.
Absolutely.
His tenure and his legacy.
Absolutely.
Which, in your case, talking about him, has not always been pleasant and positive.
That's right.
What is the problem, in your view, with the Obama presidency, and what are the ramifications of it? Loaded question. And what the heck does it have anything to do with Donald Trump being president now? I know I just asked, I broke the rule, I asked three questions at once, but go ahead.
But that third question about the backlash, there is an element of real backlash. Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. We're talking about a slice of our fellow citizens, not vast majority, but a slice of our fellow citizens. Enough to make a difference.
That's right,
Absolutely.
In key states, but go ahead.
In key states too. But no, you see, my dear brother Barack Obama, he and I started very closely together. I supported him in 2008, supported him in 2012, actually.
In Chicago?
65 events in 2008, no, all around the country. We started in Iowa and ended up in Ohio the night before. Well, what happened was I told him from the very beginning I was going to be a critical supporter. You see, because, you see, my calling in my lane is to try to tell the truth and be free. A politician's lane is not to tell the truth and be free, it's to get elected. So when we first met, I told him, I said, what is your relation to the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. and Ella Baker, right? That has to do with poverty, it has to do with mass incarceration, it has to do with foreign policy and not dropping bombs on innocent people and so forth. So when he brought in the Wall Street folk and bailed out Wall Street rather than homeowners.
2008?
2008.
8, 9?
When he had the meeting in March of 2009 with the CEOs from Wall Street and said, I stand between you and the pitchforks, but I support you, I will protect you, and not one Wall Street criminal went to jail, and yet mass incarceration is still expanding on the ground with poor and working people of all colors, disproportionately chocolate, and when they continued to drop those drones in Afghanistan and Pakistan and Libya and Somalia, and they knew they were also killing innocent people. You see, just as a Christian and as a person, I had to go at him and say, look, that is wrong,
Sorry for
brother.
interrupting. Dr. West, you told him directly what you thought?
Yes, I did.
You said before listening is important. Being open to other points of view, that's important, particularly for a leader. As a student of leadership, I'm fascinated by the role of listening to others.
Yes.
Was President Obama listening to you?
I think initially he was, but he got disproportionately influenced by the Wall Street people, the Tim Geithners and Larry Summers, who were so tied to Wall Street at that time, and Brenner, who was tied to the counterterrorist policies of drones and what have you, and trashing the whistleblowers when it came to surveillance, Manning, Snowden, and so forth. So I had to be true to my own calling, which is to tell the truth, no matter what color the president is.
And him being black, you don't even sit there and go, at no point do you say, you know what, our first African-American president, incredible historical significance, let me back off a little bit. You don't think to yourself, a second?
Well, no, what I did was I always salute his unprecedented symbolic significance as the first black president. That's an indictment of white supremacist ideology and practice. I always give him credit. I love his brilliance. I love his poise. We miss that now with Trump, no doubt about that. But when it comes to Wall Street allowing the unaccountability, back to our issue again, when it comes to drones, when it comes to surveillance, and it took him too long for me to talk about the new Jim Crow. It took him 7 years before he had any moves against the mass incarceration system. Whereas when it comes to our poor and working people, you got to hit that head on, just like you got to hit the schools.
Do you think he ducked it? Let me ask you this. And
he ducked it for political reasons.
Do you think, okay, let me.
Strategy.
So you think if he did that too early on, you think he thought, listen, we're doing a lot of, trying to figure out what's up, that if he had done that, that there were too many white Americans who said, wait a minute, hold on. Is that right?
I think so. I think it's not just him, but that's how politicians think. They've got to be very calculating in terms of what they do and what they say.
That?
I can respect that within the context if, in fact, it's still moving in the right direction. But my calling is not to be strategic. We're in different lanes. You see, we got different lanes. My calling is to try to be a truth teller and a witness bearer and pursue truth given my own failures and faults.
Not to win.
It's not, well, I want to win in terms of making sure the issues are visible and the people's humanity are accessed.
That's winning.
That's a certain kind of winning.
We'll go back, because the last part of the question I asked is, what do you think President Obama's presidency, Barack Obama's presidency, had anything to do, if at all, Dr. West, with Donald Trump being elected president?
No, I think that there was a slice of our fellow citizens who got the impression that black people were running things and they didn't want to be in a situation where black leadership was dictating their destiny. Now, the irony was Obama's leadership was tied to Wall Street, tied to military-industrial complex.
Pretty white.
He didn't say too much about race. Remember, he wouldn't say too much about race. And I would say over and over again, I'm not talking about race just in terms of skin pigmentation. Race is about integrity, honesty, decency, generosity, and the humanity of people who have been hated and dominated. I would say exactly the same thing if we had a black supremacist civilization and white brothers and sisters have been enslaved for 400 years, enslaved for 244 years, Jim Crow for 100 years, and you got white bodies hanging from trees where you had black fight, then you got to be in solidarity with the white brothers, because it's a moral and spiritual issue.
By the way, as Dr. West talks about this, do yourself a favor, go on our PBS website. Dr. Gates did some very important work. Henry Louis Gates did really important work talking about the lynchings that went on in our country after the Civil War, and the museum that is dedicated to telling that part of the story.
That's Brian Stevenson.
That's tremendous.
Yeah, that's brother Brian down in Montgomery.
I saw that interview. Let me ask you this in the couple minutes we have. When it comes to race and our ability to talk to each other,
yes,
openly, honestly, with respect, as opposed to who are you with, Trump or not?
Right.
Are you here or are you here?
Right.
But I'm not saying Trump is all about race. What I'm asking is, how hopeful are you, Dr. West, that we moving forward can have meaningful, respectful dialogue without all the vitriol and hate? Loaded question, I know, as we finish up.
No, the thing is, we've got to first begin with ourselves. Are we willing to make sure we revel in the humanity of other people even when we disagree with them? to give them the benefit of being right or wrong, recognizing we could be right or wrong, and then pursue the dialogue together.
As opposed to demonizing them, they must be bad people if they don't agree with me.
That's right. No, that's not, and that's just not true, because all of us have various kind of blindnesses. All of us have various kind of shortcomings and myopia. And to the degree to which we think we're pure is a degree to which we're just reproducing the myth of America ourselves. We're so innocent. So you got a lot of liberal self-righteousness out there.
Liberal self-righteousness.
Oh, yeah, they look down on the working people, look down on conservative people, think that somehow they've got access to a truth, and these folk are just ignorant. That's innocence, too. We were criticizing the innocence at the beginning. All of us have failures. Try again, fail better. That's Samuel Beckett. Try again, fail better. All of us have certain elements of failure built inside of who we are. The question is, can we access the best of who we are? Because all of us have some real potential.
But I tell you what, you still sound optimistic to me.
Well, I'm full of hope, not optimism. I'm a prisoner of hope, but not optimism.
Real quick, what's the difference?
Hope means you're going to keep moving regardless of what the circumstances are. No matter what the evidence is, you keep loving, you keep fighting for justice. Optimism means, what does the evidence look like? Does it look like it
You're not even looking for evidence. You're just hopeful.
Looking for evidence. That's exactly right.
Well, let me say this. I am hopeful, and I'm also optimistic and confident that folks who took the time to watch and listen to Dr. Cornel West for this very in-depth interview here in Atlantic City at the New Jersey Education Association will be better for it, because they'll be questioning themselves. And I cannot thank you enough. You honor us.
As long as your show is on, that's a sign of hope right there.
I'm using that endorsement, Dr. West.
Oh, please. And I say yes.
Thank you.
I'm in your corner, brother.
Appreciate it. We are in yours.
No,
I'm Steve Adubato. That, way more importantly, is Dr. Cornel West. And we thank you for staying with us. Catch you next time.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by Hackensack Meridian Health, the New Jersey Education Association, Berkeley College, New Jersey Sharing Network, the law firm of Gibbons, P.C., NJM Insurance Group, New Jersey Resources, Delta Dental of New Jersey, and by ADP. Promotional support provided by NJ Advance Media and by Jaffe Communications.